Joe Biden had a bit of a blip thanks to Marjorie Taylor Greene at the State of the Union the other night. You probably saw that. You know, she stood up and she was basically calling him out because he wasn't talking about the problem at the border as it relates to violence with all of these illegal, undocumented, as they like to call them. I mean, who the heck cares? They're illegal, okay? They're here illegally. Like, that is the proper use of the word. And by the way, they used to say it all the time. I was looking at some sound this morning from Barack Obama talking about how we can't have 500,000 illegal people crossing into the country every year. Now it's more like 7 or 8 million under Joe Biden. So we have all these people coming in illegally. He does his State of the Union, tries to blame Republicans for the border situation. Good luck with that, Joe. Marjorie calls him out, and he starts to talk about, yeah, you know, I know that Lincoln, he can't even get her name right. Her name is Laken Riley, was killed by an illegal. And that was that. All of a sudden, then Nancy Pelosi went on television and started calling him out for it, like scolding him like some bad little kid. And now he's doubling down on his apology because he shouldn't have referred to a guy that brutally murdered a young woman as forgive me, as illegal. That you can only say undocumented. I mean, what is this about? Are they trying to distract from the fact that he didn't know her name? And now it's becoming about semantics? This is not going to play in Peoria, as they say. But first, watch Nancy scolding him because he dared to say the word illegal, which is what this illegal person who murdered a young woman actually was.
Making wealthy people pay their fair share.
Dana?
Madam Speaker, one of the clearly ad-libbed moments was during the section about immigration. And I'm sure you saw the buttons that your colleagues across the aisle had. And he had one of those buttons. We believe it was given to him by Marjorie Taylor Greene. And when she said something to him during his speech, he responded. I think we have that. Let's listen to it.
I didn't see any Republican buttons.
Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand.
Now, you should have said undocumented, but that's not a big thing, okay? What's the big thing about
No,
it?
I actually wasn't even going to ask about that. I was just going to ask more about the moment. But you do think that he should have said undocumented? That wasn't going to be my question.
Well, we usually say undocumented. He said illegal. I don't think it's a big deal.
Okay.
I don't think it's a big deal.
But more broadly.
Because I think his focus was on the sympathy for the family.
Yeah.
It's a terrible tragedy.
That was going to be the basis of my question about it, which is, as you well know, maybe you didn't know about the buttons, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of news about this young woman who was a student at the University of Georgia, and she died, and apparently was an undocumented immigrant. And the fact that he was ready with that, with the button, with the response, what do you make of that when it comes to not just the substance, but also the performance?
Well, I think that it was, if that's spontaneous. See, I don't know about the buttons, and you're telling me that they had buttons. I didn't see. I didn't do too much schmoozing with the Republicans before. Usually we do, and we had some conversations, but none of the ones that came over to converse with us had those buttons on, so I didn't see the buttons. So we want to make a thing of the button. The president, I think, handled it very well.
Yeah, and I think
he handled it very well. It's a terrible situation. That anybody losing a child or a family member. It's a terrible situation. But I think he handled it well.
It's a terrible situation, which is why you should actually be focused on that, Nancy Pelosi, and not on semantics surrounding whether he said undocumented or illegal. The guy was here illegally, okay? That is the proper use of the word. Anyway, I think they're trying to distract. Because then Joe Biden's doubling down on this. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that I said illegal. Here he is on, was this MS? Of course it was MSNBC. Of course. He goes on with this reporter. Check it out.
Look of surprise on your face when you walked into the chamber. You saw Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. It was priceless. You feigned shock at seeing her. But during your response to her heckling of you, you used the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented. And look, when I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do. I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect. Look, they built the country. The reason our economy is growing. We have to control the border and more orderly flow, but I don't share his view at all.
So you.
Unbelievable. You know, I just want to remind you, I played this sound last week for you. You can go in last week's live shows. Unbelievable. In the 2020 debate, Joe Biden actually called for a surge at the border. Literally said, I welcome people to surge the border because, you know, this is who we are as America, et cetera, et cetera. So he invited them here. They're now coming here in droves. And you got to say, like, what is this really about? Elon Musk is making an interesting observation saying that it may be about the census. In other words, all of these people are counted for the census, and the more people you have in certain particular districts, well, then the more congressional seats you can have. 320,000 people were flown in under the radar of anyone's knowledge. It was the Center for Immigration Studies that discovered this through FOIA requests, et cetera. Now the administration has admitted it. Yes, they flew in 320,000 people to all of these different cities in the dead of the night. People didn't even know. The cities didn't even know. The White House made the decision that somehow they didn't want to tell the cities because there might be too much pushback. I mean, how is that any different than Texas sending people to Martha's Vineyard or to San Francisco or to New York? Or Chicago. I mean, at least Texas has the decency to tell the cities that they're sending them there. Biden was making a choice to bring them all over the country. I suspect Elon is right on this. If you want to think about it, what is the method to the madness, for goodness sakes? That may indeed be it. So 320,000 people being flown in the dead of the night to all of these various cities. And why? Maybe because it helps them to score more congressional votes. Anyway, they're here illegally. That's the term. They're illegal aliens, right? Donald Trump doesn't have a problem with saying that. He met, by the way, with Laken Riley's family ahead of his appearance there in Georgia over the weekend. And he spoke very passionately about why we need to address this crisis, a crisis that he cited as far back as 2016. Let's watch.
When I say he was an illegal alien, he was an illegal immigrant, he was an illegal migrant, and he shouldn't have been in our country, and he never would have been under the Trump policy. And Biden should be apologizing for apologizing to this killer.
I mean, you don't need to apologize for that. For goodness sakes, the guy's a murderer. It's crazy. It's heinous to think of that. But now the White House says this is fake news if we say it was an apology. I mean, you saw it, right? He went on there. He's like, you know, I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have said this. But they want you to know that wasn't technically an apology. What? Okay, you got to listen to this, guys. This is one of the White House press people, Olivia Dalton, on Air Force One, because Biden's out traveling the country in my home state of New Hampshire today. And she was asked about this interview that Biden did with the MSNBC guy. And you're not, I mean, talking about gaslighting people. Here you go.
His interview with Jonathan Capehart, President Biden apologized for calling Laken Riley's killer an illegal. Does he feel like he needs to apologize to illegal immigrants for calling them what they are, or using the term illegal?
First of all, I want to be really clear about something. The president absolutely did not apologize. There was no apology anywhere in that conversation. He did not apologize. He used a different word. I think what we should be really clear about is the facts. So, in addition to the fact that the president did not apologize, I want to make another thing clear. The president spoke directly to this in the State of the Union address not 4 nights ago, when he spoke passionately about knowing what it means to lose a child, and extended his deep grief and condolences to Laken Riley's family in front of the entire country in the House chamber. And beyond that, I think it's unconscionable that there are some people who are playing politics with this young woman's tragic murder, and particularly at a time when, let's not forget, House Republicans are standing in the way of a bipartisan border security agreement that is the toughest bill we have ever seen in history, and they're doing so because Donald Trump feels that the American people's safety is less important than his personal politics.
So they're trying to manipulate this from here to Sunday. Let's be very frank on that. So that was not an apology that he gave Jonathan Capehart. No. Because we're going to debate semantics all day long, right? Illegal, undocumented. I shouldn't have said this. Not an apology. So a correction? Should we call it a correction? He's correcting himself. Can't call it an apology. The White House is going to get angry. So note to producers, when we put this little clip out, make sure you don't call it an apology because they'll say we're fake news. Can you believe it? I mean, how insane is this? It's gotten so bizarre. Donald Trump has really resonated with people all over the country, by the way, from both parties, because he just has a little common sense. Unlike the people we see in the White House right now, literally no common sense on multiple levels. They want to sit here all day and talk about undocumented versus illegal, whether it's an apology or a correction. You guys can debate these words all day long, but it doesn't change what actually happened. And this is why he's resonating in a spectacular way, which really puts Joe Biden and the Democrats in jeopardy for November of 2024.